have a dual passport. If they come from America and Europe, so they do have another citizenship. So 25% is no small percentage, it's a high percentage. Imagine 25% of the population leave, that's a lot of people.
But so 8 million, 25% would be 2 million. So you still have about 5 to 6 million that are born and raised inside Israel. So would they be able to coexist with the Palestinians if it was to rule one state?
Yeah, they do just fine if they just, behave themselves.
So I heard that this morning there was a lot of movement at the airport in Bengal. And the U.S. cargo ships and whatnot, cargo jets. Did you hear anything about that, Jimmy?
I don't know, but I know the American government has been facilitating people leaving the area. If you're an American and you want to leave, things are much easier for you to leave now than a week ago or 10 days ago, because the airport is open and the exit points, the land exit points are not as easy to use as an airport. So if the airlines are functioning and they're back in business, I guess a lot of people will be leaving. A lot of Americans are leaving, and there was an advisory from the American embassy on that procedure to leave the area.
I don't know. I think there's. I'll have to check the percentage of the Jew citizens. How many are there? Because if they're leaving, then how many would leave? Because they are leaving to Cyprus, and people in Cyprus are worried about it now, that they're going to take over our state, our land.
You know what's funny, Emil? I was literally just reading it right now. So since October 7th until today, like over 15,000 people from Israel moved to Cyprus, and they're purchasing lands, properties. They even have, I think, a church and a graveyard. And now, if I'm not wrong, I think the government is putting out a law to stop anyone who's a foreigner or anyone who's not from there from purchasing properties.
Yeah, and I'm scared what if they do ethnic cleansing over there, just like what they did to the Palestinians. And Cyprus is backed by Pakistan, so I wonder what will happen now. Because it's dangerous, it's dangerous to keep these people around, man. These people are just,
Well, Cyprus is in the neighborhood, and it's a very beautiful place. It has the same weather as, almost the same weather as Palestine. And purchasing property in Cyprus is not that complicated. So, and the prices of the real estate market is pretty decent. I mean, the price is decent. It's not horrible. And it's in the neighborhood. It's very clean. It's very close by. It's very easy to get to. You can actually sail to Cyprus and fly to Cyprus in, fly in about half an hour, 45 minutes. So it's in the neighborhood, and it's a beautiful place, beautiful weather, nice beaches. So yeah, it could be a good place for them to. I'm sure a lot of them invested or moved to Cyprus, and it makes it's a good investment. It's a good investment to invest in real estate in Cyprus. I don't know how worried the Cyprus government is about the presence of Israelis, but also Cyprus is a lot of Russian money in Cyprus. A lot of Russian people invest in Cyprus. It's an open market for real estate investment.
One of the leaders in Cyprus is worried about it.
Bro, they already have a graveyard. Can you believe it? They already have their own graveyard on that island.
Yeah, there's an Israeli population in Cyprus. They've been around for a while. It's not new. They've been going there for a while.
هلا من بعد أحداث أكتوبر 7.
So you said there's water in the middle until you get to the island, right? So I think they'll build a bridge. Can you drive to Cyprus, Jindip?
No, I think you can either go by plane or by boat.
No, you can't drive. Cyprus is an island. You can't drive to Cyprus. You can sail or land flying to Cyprus.
So let's say if they take over Cyprus, right? They'll probably build a bridge directly from Israel all the way to Cyprus.
It's a bit far, but remember, Cyprus is divided in two places. There's the Greek part and there's the Turkish part. And I'm pretty sure most of them go to the southern part, which is the Turkish, the Greek part. I don't know what. I don't know. I think you can. I don't know because it's still the disputed or occupied territory on the parts of the Turks, but I'm not really sure what the deal with buying real estate in the northern part of the island. It's part of Turkey. It's pretty easy to buy property in Turkey too, and it's much cheaper than. It's probably the cheapest place in Europe to buy real estate. One of the cheapest.
Oh, Larry, you get triggered, man, so easily. You dipshit.
See, he knew that we were talking about them flying or going over to Cyprus, and then as soon as he came in, he said, "Whoever will take you, but feel free, whoever will take you." No, bitch, we're talking about you. You're the ones who, as soon as you got attacked, retaliation from Iran, you started running away from the land. Bro, how the fuck can you run away from your own land? You claim that it's your land.
The sewer rat is from Brooklyn.
I know.
What the fuck is it? Yeah, why is he talking about this? I mean, what does he have to do with any of this stuff? You're a sewer rat still. I mean, I don't read what he's fucking typing, but whatever it is. To me, he's on my shit list and he's a sewer rat.
That's exactly what I thought when I heard all of the Zionists were going to Cyprus. I was like, you see videos of Palestinians saying no, this is our home, we'll die here, it's okay, we were born here, our parents were born here, our grandparents were born here, our great grandparents were born here, and then as soon as things get hot, they just leave. I'm like, isn't that your home? Aren't you gonna stay? If you really love it, if that's really your home, you really care, then why wouldn't you want to? Why would you all leave?
Who's leaving? Who are you talking about?
The Zionist terrorists were leaving when Iran attacked them back. You know who the Zionist terrorists are?
Sinuses, they're not terrorists. Terrorists is Hamas.
No, we're talking about the Zionist terrorists.
I don't know the Zionist terrorists.
Oh, okay, I can't teach you on that. So if you don't know, it's better that you don't get involved in the conversation.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You want to use more straightforward terms? Whatever was it that? Teddy, what's it, Teddy?
Michael.
In other words, yeah. In other words, you can tell him, shut the fuck up.
They're not letting anybody leave, bro. What do you mean? That's so stupid. Attacking Lebanon, Syria, you attack all your neighbors. What's the point?
So the problem with them is that when they sit here and talk, they talk as if the world is dumb. They don't understand what's happening, they don't see what's happening, but they will still sit here and, throw all their lies.
Well, and they'll call baby terrorists. how can you call a baby, a 1-year-old, a terrorist? Like, I don't understand that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense.
If you don't understand, why you're talking about? If you don't understand,
No, we don't understand that how do the Zionist terrorists, the Zionist terrorists, we don't understand how can a human being that is a Zionist terrorist call a 1-year-old child a fucking terrorist or whatever.
they don't do that.
Yes, of course they do that. Do you know about the Zionist terrorists? I thought you didn't know about them. Do you know about them?
In my past, I'm 4 years served in Israel military, so I exactly know what I'm talking about.
Oh, so
And
you're
what
the
you guys
biggest
talking about
terrorist.
is bullshit.
So you're the biggest terrorist.
Yeah,
Interesting.
I'm a super biggest terrorist. And when I listen to this girl, she don't understand what she's talking about. She's exactly right.
Talk to me. Forget about the girl. I know you guys love attacking women and children, but talk to me, you fucking scumbag son of a bitch. So what do you have to say?
With you, nothing I can talk to you about.
With me, you bend over and I do all the work, you fucking scumbag. But with women, you know how to fucking attack them, kill them, and kill their babies. But when it comes to men, they cook the fuck out of you scumbags.
We kill brave Muslim men who hiding behind their children.
No, you don't kill brave Muslim men. When you
That's
say
exactly what we're doing.
listen, when you go face brave, when you go face them, and Khan Yunis, for example, you go back home in bags, But other than that, all you do is airstrikes. You're not. Would he left, motherfucker? Why did he leave? Look at this scumbag hiding in Brooklyn talking about. You don't like it normal when I talk like this. I know that, but sucks to suck, motherfucker. There's nothing that you can do about it.
I should have called that guy anti-Semitic for talking badly about me.
No, I knew he was going there. This is why I responded to him as soon as he unmuted.
That's crazy.
Bitch, Palestinians are never cowards, motherfucker. That's why they're still fighting for their land. You guys are running away from that land because it's not yours.
I honestly feel like most Zionists are like anti-Semitic towards Jews also, because if you really love Jewish people, like if you ever defended a Jewish person, you wouldn't want to put them in that situation or to be so aggressive to where the whole world is like, why are you guys so aggressive? Why are you so angry? Why are you so hateful? You know what I mean? Because I know that there's plenty of Jews who are like, we don't like this, we don't want this. But these other people are saying that they're doing all this stuff in the name of Judaism, and I think it's crap. Why would you do that? Why would you make your own people look so bad? It's embarrassing.
Like for example, tell El Normo that you're a Jew and you don't stand, or you don't support his thoughts or whatever, and see what he says.
Well, then they just call you names. They wouldn't consider me a Jew anyways because, well, I guess technically it's my father. I'm pretty sure on my mother's side they were Jews before they became Catholic.
The law says you can do Aliyah even if your father is a Jew, by the way. So you do get to do the Aliyah, right? So you are actually Jewish, you see what I'm saying? So Al-Norma, would you respect her? She's actually Muslim. She converted to Islam, but by ethnicity she's actually a Jew.
Well,
so I think he's gonna call you a self-hating Jew.
Well, that's what's crazy about it, dude. Just like, if anything, like, look, my mom is a Zionist. She supports Israel, but years ago she got attacked by the president of the Jewish Foundation, and they went to court, and my mom had like 12 witnesses who saw him attack her. And the judge was like, no, I'm going to let you go. This is your Hanukkah present or whatever. I still don't understand because I was so little at the time. But I remember my mom being like, "Oh, all Jews, they're all like this," and da 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 da, like kind of talking bad about Jews all the time. And I would tell her like, "No, it's just that person that you met. Like, there's good Jewish people out there. It's just that this person that attacked you or whatever, like, he's just not a good guy. Like, even if he's the president of the Jewish Foundation, like, he doesn't represent every single Jew that's out there." You know what I mean? And I feel like they're trying to do the same thing where they're saying, no, all Jews think this way, all Jews should think this way. And I'm like, that's not fair. Like, I don't think all Jews think that way. I think there's a lot of good Jews out there, and it's really not cool that you're dragging them into this when they don't want to be a part of it in the first place. You know, like they're waiting for God, or they're doing whatever. You guys are doing whatever you're doing, because that's what I thought it was. Like, I thought it was, the Jews were scattered across the four corners of the earth until God came back and brought them together. I might be wrong, but that's what I thought.
That's what the Christians are waiting for. That's Christian Zionism. The Christians are waiting for all the Jews to get back to Israel so Jesus will come back. That's called.
Yes. Okay. Why? Some girl said, well, she was like, so one of the particular prostitutes was talking shit about, what's the name being a prostitute?
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about? The one that
Who's really attacking Jewish people? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah, but the thing is, to some people, we had this guy called Ariel here. Shapeshifter was in here. Shapeshifter asked him a question. Are you able to justify using the verses from your scripture? He said yes. He brought up the Amalek verse. You know. Salud, if you'd like to come on up, just raise your hand. I'm getting glitches on this freaking app. I don't know what the hell's going on.
Actually, me too. I was thinking about this for a second.
I'm trying to click on people's profile. I can't even click it.
I think it's this motherfucker that normally keeps typing so much in the chat that I think the room glitches, bro. Seriously.
Let him
Oh, dude. No,
Walaikum salam. How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine. Habibi, we have some Josh probably, doing something.
Oh man, all the Josh do something.
Yeah, sometimes they all gather at the same time,
Every place they go to, they corrupt it.
Yeah, we have at least, I see one of them in a room.
Yeah. They corrupted. Every place they enter is corruption for them, bro. Whether it's a land, it's a platform, it's a synagogue, it's a shopping mall, any place they go to, these bumps, they just corrupt it. And they use the Torah to justify it. And if you go read the Torah and read what's in the scripture itself, you see that it goes against everything that they're doing. You didn't corrupt my Rabbit, normal, but you corrupted your Rabbit. Tel Aviv and Haifa, bro. Go help your people out, man. And don't you ever dare to attack Iran again. Because you know what happens if you do that. You're celebrating, man, for the last 80 years, you as a country, you call yourself a country, with all this technology, military equipment, support from the US, support from the West. For 76 years, you scumbag, you're fighting Hamas. What is Hamas, bro? And you're still not done. How the fuck did we lose, bro? See, buddy, you see what happened when you go attack a country, how the response is from a country versus Hamas? tell us how you won, yeah, normal. Explain to us, how did you win? Okay.
Can we get an update on, is the BDS movement actually working? Is there a way to measure whether or not it's working? How many people divest and how much are they?
General, I think this question is for you, bro.
Amir, can you bring General up?
I did send him an invite. He's check your profile, General. Accept speaker invite. I sent him an invite. I think he's probably sleeping. What are you looking for?
Sorry, I wanted to know how the BDS movement is doing. Is there a way to measure progress of the BDS movement? And if so, what is?
I wonder if ChatGPT will have an answer for us. Let's see. Let's ask ChatGPT.
You know what? In the Middle East, they actually talking about.
You know, I can chime in on this.
Sure, go on.
Yeah, you know, for the. So we have to acknowledge one thing. I'm cooking, by the way, so I don't know if there's background noise. Wow. Sorry. So, you know, I mean, in general, we have to know that the precautions and punishment, you can say, you know, penalties exacted upon the people behind BDS have been so huge. For instance, you know, you have in America all of these laws on the state level where, you know, they're anti-BDS law, you know, and they do put, you know, heavy penalties on, for instance, companies, people working with states, you know, who are with BDS. But at the same time, BDS did bring awareness. It did, for instance, convince the Southern Baptist Church, or maybe, no, not the Baptist, I'm sorry, Presbyterian Church of America, could be the whole Presbyterian Church.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier, Presbyterian and
Yeah.
Methodist.
And Methodist, actually, when they did it in my city. When they came to my city and they had the convention in my city here in America, and they were able to, like, you know, the vote, they won the vote and decided to boycott. So yeah, I mean, it's moving, but it's not. It could be, you know, I mean, we have to understand that the ground itself is not easy. You know, the path is just full of obstacles. You know, placed by the Zionists. Yeah.
Well, can you explain how Starbucks is connected to the BDS? Like why are people boycotting Starbucks? I mean, I understand.
Complicated.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I don't know about Starbucks. To be honest with you, Starbucks, there is some ambivalence. I don't think Starbucks, they written, and it could be, I mean, this isn't definite. What I'm saying, there is ambivalence, you know, around it. Ambiguity, I would say. But they've written, you know, the CEO has written letters that they are not like McDonald's or Coca-Cola. Or, you know, and I don't think they have any stores in the West Bank or that's in the settlements, or even inside, I think even inside Israel.
That's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
No, they're in Israel. They're in Tel Aviv.
They are
all over
yeah.
there. And they're not trying to feed no Gazans, and they're not trying to give them no free coffee. They're not trying to help them. It's not really complicated. When people are starving, you give them food. When people are thirsty, you give them water. Sorry, I don't mean to yell. It's really not that complicated, though.
No, I
Fuck
agree
Starbucks.
with you.
I don't really curse, but fuck Starbucks.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, that's not I mean, we know one thing for sure, that the COO, the first one, was a big-time Zionist. I don't know if he's still the same, but the founders are big-time Zionists. I know that for sure, but this is like something, 20 years ago,
I looked it up on Disoccupied, and it says Starbucks claims to be neutral, but has taken legal action against its workers' union for expressing solidarity with Palestine. It profits from 1,900 stores in the Middle East and North Africa, and had 36 billion annual revenue in 2023, higher than the GDP of 91 countries. Sorry, I'm skipping so that I can find more stuff. Howard Schultz, the founder and largest private owner of Starbucks stocks, invests heavily in Israel's economy, including a recent investment in cybersecurity startup Wiz. This investment underscores Schultz's commitment to Israel's economic growth, with the effect of normalizing the occupation of Palestine.
I appreciate y'all.
I mean, if we think about boycotting U.S. traded companies, there's not that many that aren't correlated with each other, because the big banks, BlackRock, State Street, there's a couple other we could mention. They own everything and they trade on everything. So if you think of Amazon, okay, you want to support locally owned businesses, you want to support American owned business, you want to support whoever you want to support. Well, Amazon itself trades, right? So you have to consider the source, and you have to consider at the very tippy top of the U.S. stock market and world trade where the money, is connected to these people. And I'll just say it again, fuck Starbucks.
I wanted to go back to that, those state laws in that say you can't divest in Israel, and tell you what I've learned about that. So in Texas, where I'm at, there is a state law, the anti-divestment, anti-BDS law here, and what it says is that anyone who makes a contract with the state of Texas has to proclaim that they do not divest in Israel. So where that hits home is there is a speech therapist in Pflugerville, and she was working as a contractor because she was trilingual. She's fluent in German, Arabic, and English. And anytime that Pflugerville would get a student who spoke one of those languages, then she had to do the testing and report on and provide the therapy for those kids so that she could do it bilingually. I mean, you can identify kids for speech therapy as early as 3 years old. So she was always a contractor. She worked part-time. She only worked for Pflugerville ISD. And after many years of doing that, she was told, sign this new contract for the new school year. And all of a sudden there was a new line on the contract, and she refused to sign it. So because she refused to sign it, they could not hire her as a contractor, speech therapist in Pflugerville. And she took up I think it was that CARE actually helped her, and they first went to the local courts, and I think it was that she lost there, but then went to the district courts or circuit court and won. She would have had to lose the circuit court in order to go to the Supreme Court. So that's why she didn't go to the Supreme Court. Now there's a movie about the 3 or 4 people that this happened to. So the second one was a guy in Arizona who was, where they also have an anti-BDS movement. And in Arizona, he was not Muslim at all. He just was a counselor for a prison, for prisoners. And the prison had contracted him, and now they were asking him to sign a BDS, anti-BDS commitment, statement. And he refused. He said, I'm not, not going to sign this, and so it couldn't work. And that advanced. So it didn't get to the level of the Supreme Court either. He went through the same, I can't remember if he won on the second one or he won on the second court or the first court or what, but he didn't get to the Supreme Court. And then the third person was this guy in Arkansas, and he was a Clinton person. And he ran a newspaper for Arkansas, in Little Rock, I think. And he was one of the reporters that under, Clinton was reporting everything when Clinton became president. So he also took it all the way up, and he didn't get to the Supreme Court. There was a fourth person in Texas, that was the last person, and he actually got to the second level, third level of the Supreme Court. He got to the second level, and he lost, so he appealed. It went to the Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court can decide if they want to hear the cases or not, and they wouldn't take the case. They decided not to take it, but if they would have taken it, and he would have won. This was he was a construction worker in Texas, and he's Arab. So if he would have won, if they would have heard his case and he would have won, then it would have been determined that all of these anti-BDS laws that are in like 20-some states would all be unconstitutional. But it didn't get to that point. The film that I saw this on, it was showcasing, explaining how they copy and pasted this law, and these lobbyists went to each of the state legislators and just filled in their state name and all that, and then finally they just wined and dined these state representatives, and then finally, they just passed it because they made them feel sorry for Israel. They didn't really know what they were voting for. And so that's how this blanket state law has just spread all over the United States.
BDS laws are problematic because it protects only a certain class of people and eliminates an entire group of people. And that's exactly what's happening in Israel right now, is the U.S. government is helping protect a certain class of people, and everyone else has to fend for themselves and run and hide and blame Hamas for everything. And the hostages, El Normo, Mr. Norman Bates in the chat, psychopath, is always about, the hostages, the hostages. If the hostages were really, really, really real, if they were really, really, really real, right? If it was really real and everything was really real, this would have not been the way that it has gone. You don't just annihilate an entire 38-mile strip of land for no reason and then scream Hamas, Hamas, the hostages, because clearly if they were searching for the hostages and Hamas, how could you annihilate that much ground and hurt that many people and destroy that much property and that much real estate and that many hospitals and schools and daycares and dental clinics and local businesses? Come on, man. Let's not be stupid here. People want to say Hamas, 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 this, that, and the third, but when you want to colonize, what do? What's the first thing you do when you buy a property? You go in, you survey the land, and you remove anything in your way from building what you're trying to build. And that's what we're witnessing. I remember like day 2 seeing the PTRs on this app of people comparing Gaza to a parking strip, you know, to a parking lot. And what are we seeing now? So, yeah, I'll just land there.
You know what it's like? It's like the United States versus the Italian mafia. They just go and level all of New York City just to try to get the Italian mafia. That's how stupid it is. If the dummy of the Israelis wanted to get the hostages back, they could have negotiated with Hamas, got all of them back. And if they wanted to strategically go kill them, they could have did that afterwards, sending in like a secret team to go do all this stuff. But they didn't care about that. All they want to do is just basically kill, take, wipe out, remove everybody in Gaza and the West Bank, and try to annex the whole state and be like, oh, it's all ours. And you have to blend into that. And it's no different to just like the South African apartheid. In their mind, you had to walk on, the white people walk on one side of the street, black people walk on the other side. In their mind, they were showing how many millionaires came out of South Africa just due to the apartheid, because they were stealing all the damn resources and the money. And all of a sudden, I wrote matter of fact, I wrote a movie treatment on the Kimberley mines with the diamonds, with the De Beer family. And come to find out, when the Dutch found that diamond there, they literally found the diamond, went back to Europe, found the value of it, came back with their people, and then they started taking the people that wanted to work at that mine and literally put them in like prison camps where they couldn't even go home. Then they started making the land being tax worthy, where you had to pay taxes to get the land, something they never had in Africa. And they literally just came through and took all that shit, like the whole De Beer, the whole put a diamond ring on somebody's finger, all that shit was just paid up, made up. And that's all. In their mind, they have no empathy. I'm telling you, these people are just basically devil worshippers. Because anybody with the same mind or heart, say you got love for God and all that, you ain't gonna think like these people think. These people are just basically a spawn of the devil. They demons are demonically possessed. That's why it's like in our mind, our normal mind, we like, man, how could people just sit back and watch the people just die? That man said a motherfucker can't live, 36 or 72 hours without water. They cut off all the water for 3 months. I seen little kids drinking out of fucking mud water and shit like that, or even salty water. And it's like the United States just sit back with their little petty. United States ain't shit. This motherfucking country really ain't shit. It's really a piece of shit. All these motherfucking presidents ain't shit. I'm gonna call it how I see it. The motherfuckers don't want to give back shit just like they did to slavery. They don't want to pay reparations, but they give Japanese reparations, the Indians reparations. They gave all these motherfuckers reparations, but when it come down to black people ask for anything, oh, you can't get shit, we ain't got it. But you can find billions of dollars to go send to Ukraine and give all these motherfuckers money, but then when sometime that, oh, we can't give you shit, we gave you welfare. Bitch, you motherfucking stole the shit. The motherfuckers here really ain't shit. I'm saying they devil worshippers. They gotta be. Because nobody in with a heart, sound, and mind gonna sit there and watch these motherfuckers just sit there and demolish, kill 1.7 million motherfuckers and just, oh, we gonna cut their water, their food, fuck them off. And these dumb motherfuckers do whatever Israel say. I'm telling you, America is a bitch. Israel's the pimp. They pimping America like some bitches. And this Trump is a bitch. He act like he hard, tell NATO, all these motherfuckers to pay they due and all that bullshit. But when soon as Netanyahu say, give me some money, give me this, oh, yeah, these motherfuckers is paying. Our whole world is a bunch of fucking pussies. They sit back and watch these motherfuckers do that to them. All these countries out here could have been said, we gonna demolish y'all motherfuckers if you sit there and touch these Palestinians one more time. But they ain't did shit. They really some bitches. They really some hoes. This whole world is ran by a motherfucking pimp. A motherfucking that worships the devil. That's what it is.
Could I say something real fast? Because that's a perfect segue for it's off topic though, man. Kind of on topic. So Alligator Alcatraz was erected in 8 days, right? And if you think about it, there was a bill just passed in Florida that's going to give tax cuts to Florida effective October 1st indefinitely for businesses and for, companies that make over 6. Hello? Y'all hear me? Hi, Jinder.
Jinder, you got
Sorry about that.
Okay, anyway,
Man,
so
like,
the
what
federal
you
government.
were saying, somebody really cut you off like a motherfucker. Shut the fuck up.
No, stop. Don't go there with him, please. Don't.
Oh, he was unmuted by mistake.
Yeah,
He
don't.
didn't interrupt.
Jim Dip's cool. So.
What the fuck just happened? What did I do? Did I just
Nothing. So Dayton County.
I just
Is it? I can't think of the name. Anyway, the county that owns Alligator Alcatraz, right? 3,000 to 5,000 beds. Can you guys guess how much money the federal government is paying per detainee bed? These are people who are supposed to be deported, right? These are illegal immigrants, right? Does anybody want to guess how much they're paying?
What's the question again, morning?
The cost per detainee for Alligator Alcatraz per day is $411, which is $150,000 per detainee a year. Does anyone want to do the math on that? And this is a privately owned detention center.
Yeah, because they're all private. Yeah.
I gotta buy me a prison, huh?
And what just happened? We just passed a bill for $150 billion to be transferred into this program. So my next question is, since you're talking about pimps, right? That our federal government is a pimp. Is that what you said, Nikki?
Hell yeah, I said it.
It'd be interesting to see who's sitting on the board and who's financially gaining from this detention center here in the next, year to 90 days.
You know, the private prisons had a meeting with the record executives back in like '92. And Farrakhan said they had a meeting based upon what the material they need to put out. So what they did is they cut off all any kind of conscious music that was coming out in the 80s and changed it into gangsters selling crack and all that. If you didn't want to talk about nothing that's genocidal, they wouldn't put your record out. So they end up, the private prisons benefited from it. So for state prisoners, they had to pay $35,000 to $40,000 a year to house them. For federal prisoners, it's like $65,000 a year to house them. But they'd rather put you in prison and all the money. But then if you want to go open a business, all that, they now, it's just a bunch of bullshit, it's a monopoly.
And do you guys know this?
I've heard about that, by the way. I mean, this is documented everywhere, Nikki. What you just said. I mean, it's before the conversation, But the how privatization of the prison and, like you said, changing rap music into promoting violence, drugs, so they can, so kids, who listen to it, will start doing drugs and doing all of that. So it'll be easier for them to be in prison. And I think there's one rapper, what was it called? The People. Remember the rap band? Oh no, I have to look for it. One guy named Professor.
Are you talking about Public Enemy?
Yeah, Public Enemy. Yeah. Well, Public Enemy actually, they one member from the band wrote a lot about it, really nicely. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Why is there a rapper telling my son to take Percocet? What's that Percocet song?
Because they all like the guys. What's the guy named from Mississippi? He was a rapper from Mississippi. He said when he tried to turn in his music to get the album put out, the music that he put out that had conscious music that were telling you about elevating the community and all this type of stuff, the record executives say we don't want that. If you want to turn us the music in, give us the music that's talking about drive-bys, killing, selling drugs, and hurting in the community. As long as they keep them going, the private prisons will be packed. And what happened was, there's an article I got where they showed that private prisons, when they wasn't getting packed, they were literally wanting to sue the state because they wasn't getting packed full enough. That's how evil. Like I said, these people here in America, boy, I tell you, it's full of shit. If you don't live in America, you look at it from a facade like, yo, it's all Hollywood, everybody's here happy and all this other bullshit. But when you really live here and figure out it's like basically a poor side and a rich side. When I was in Brazil, When I was in Brazil, I literally had to tell the Brazilians, because some of them had looked at me and said, "You from the Estados Unidos?" And they were pointing to their nose. And I had to tell them, I said, "No, dude, I ain't coming from the rich side. The motherfuckers you think they got all this money living in Beverly Hills and shit. I said, I come from the ghettos. So, motherfucker, I'm on the same level as you." And they was like,
Do me a favor, brother. Calm down on the swearing, man. Come on. Too much, brother. Too much.
So, you want to hear something interesting about the system in the United States? The United States uses 3rd and 4th grade reading levels in order to determine how many prisons to build. And we have known since 2001, I guess, how to teach kids how to read, and people are implementing the opposite of that. And now 69, as of the last NAEP, 69% of children are not reading proficiently, which means they are at risk for poverty, for dropout, poverty, and crime. And when they went to the federal prisons and offered all of the federal prisoners to test them to see if they had dyslexia, 50% of them had dyslexia and chose to get therapy for it. And now they're recommending that 1 in 5 children in the United States be diagnosed and served in special education for dyslexia. So we're basically disabling our whole country. And, a lot of those are people of color. So, it's down to the education system, where we pay more money to people who have greater taxes, pay more taxes to a certain neighborhood. We don't equally give money to schools. That's like the redlining still exists.
Oh, it's getting worse too. They've made it so where if you can't prove that you're a U.S. citizen, you have to pay a tax to go to public school now. And it's not every state that's doing it, but there's a lot of states that are signing up for this. This was a bill that was just passed since January 1st.
And now they're trying to pass the One Big Beautiful Act. And that One Big Beautiful Act is taking Medicaid money, which will directly affect housing for people with disabilities, which means that you will have a bunch of schizophrenic, mental illness roaming around the streets. So I don't know how that's going to help their neighborhoods and the real estate when there are mentally ill people walking around talking to themselves and
Are you talking about Medicare?
No, Medicaid. There's actually a federal Medicaid, and federal Medicaid goes to people with disabilities, and that's what they are cutting.
They investigated it today. I don't know if you guys seen the news. There was about $10 or $14 million worth of fraud. They've arrested a whole bunch of officials, a whole bunch of doctors. Did you guys see that?
You mentioned it earlier, Amir.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying because new people just came in, so I'm just saying maybe now they will.
Yeah.
So you guys are talking about America. So America does not have streets that are paved with gold. Not every one of you lives in a big house with a yard, has 2 cars, has a career, a job, and all that stuff. You're talking about the prisons and the healthcare system, in which the healthcare system is run by big corporations. Big corporations need clients, and they need to get people sick so they can get to a hospital. They need clients for their jails, so they have to have clients for their jails, that kind of stuff. So if not everyone of you lives in a big house, has 2 cars, works 9 to 5, 5 days a week, takes a vacation, goes out to the movies, goes out to dinner, have a good time, and so on and so forth. Is that how things in America are now? They're really bad?
Yes, they are really bad.
Why is that?
So rather than not compare it to Gaza or Iran, I will just say this, that the American dream that people are sold is considered a psyop these days. So when it says send us your poor, you're tired, and you're hungry, it's so that they can end up in Alcatraz or end up in, alligator Alcatraz. so that they could come here as a non-documented citizen and hope for the American dream, but end up, arrested by ICE and deported. Or if you're Palestinian, our bombs are going to land in your backyard. Or if you're, one of our allies, we're going to help fund any war that you want to sign up for. So rather than not mock our Medicaid and our crisis that we're facing as U.S. citizens, because we signed up for all of this by not voting and not protecting our rights, right? Here's where we are.
Well, I mean, you still go to school, you get an education, you get a job, you work for 40, 50 years, you buy a house, you pay your mortgage, and by the age of 65, those are your golden years, you have a couple of dollars in your wallet, and then you go on, and then you croak and die. Isn't that like a very idealistic American capitalism?
No, you're talking 40 to 60 hour work week until you die, and now they're going to defund everything that you paid into. I've been paying Medicaid and Social Security since I was 12. I've been working since I was 12. So I have a Social Security number in the U.S. because, I'm property on my ass of the U.S. documented system called the Social Security Department. And for me to work in the U.S., I have to have a Social Security number. And I have to pay into Medicaid and sales tax and property tax and all these things that are American woes and hems and haws. But right now, there's a lot of sick and hurt people and poor people that can't afford to live the American dream, that are homeless or that have mental health issues.
So this American dream basically consists of you getting an education and getting a job.
I guess.
30, 40 years. And
I think it depends.
Pay a mortgage on your house for 30, 40 years. And then you retire, and then you croak and die. What kind of fucking dream is that? That sounds like a fucking
Tell me about it. Like I said, it's a psyop.
Yeah, if you want to know what a black person reality is, I'm 52. I seen what the black community was like before crack hit in the 80s. And before crack hit, everybody was just working a simple job. After crack hit, it destroyed the communities. Everybody was robbing each other. No more family community. Jobs started going scarce. The wages and everything started going up because minimum wage has been stagnated. The inflation has been shooting up. The minimum wage is fucking stagnated like the 70s. So it ain't go up with the inflation. So the only people that's really, it's like separating the rich from the poor. And what happened was once they allowed the immigration of people to come through, they would take all the poor, all the jobs for people that are just trying to survive on minimum wage. But guess what? The Mexicans got a plan. They coming over here with a plan like, hey, I'll come over here, work 6-7 years, I'm gonna send that back home, and I'm gonna build my whole infrastructure because now the peso at that time was like 10 for 1. You know what I'm saying? So people who come here know, hey, my objective is not to stay here permanently. My objective is to get the money I need, get it all, get my home set up back home, and after about 5 or 7 or 10 years, I got everything straight, and I can go back home and chill. The problem is, as far as the people who stay there permanently, it's like you're trying to adjust to try to fluctuate. Like, how can you survive? Like right now, I mean, literally, the price of rent for a house is damn near like $1,500 to $2,000 a month. I'm talking about everywhere. My cousin in Inglewood, California, they paying $2,800 to $3,600 just for an apartment. It's like, dude, they is killing us. And as far as in the black community, when they dropped the crack, that's what Freeway Rick exposed. Even Gary Webb, the documentary of the ex-police officer, he exposed how the CIA, what they did to get the money to feed, to fund the Nicaragua and the Contra wars during the Reaganomics. They literally put in the black community crack, got us all on hook, made the money, and sent it down there to overthrow that particular government. That's how evil or sinister these people are. So it's like, if you look at the killing rate, look at New Zealand and look at the murder rate. There might be 1 to 2 to 3 murders per 3 months. But look over here, it's like 300, 400 murders a day. That's how crazy this place is. This place is not like something that you watch on TV, like some old, yes, all Hollywood is fun and you can Google. It's not like that,
So
if Americans were so happy.
So you mean black people in America are having a hard time, man?
Correct.
They don't have access.
Correct.
And if Americans were so happy with their privileges, then why did the New Yorkers vote for Mamdani on an economic
What are you talking about, Nazi?
That's just a blip on the
Make your
radar.
point, because I don't understand that. That sounds like a backhanded comment of who the main they're elected. So don't disrespect people. Like, make your point.
I'm saying they voted for Mamdani because they liked his message. They agreed with him that they couldn't afford to live in New York.
Okay, that's a better way to say it.
But New York is not part of America. New York is like a different part of America. Yeah, because everybody there is not American, no? They're like from everywhere. And
it is the most diverse, overpopulated city in America. So when you say New York, are we talking about New York City or are we talking about New York?
I'm talking about New York City.
I'm not from there, but I've been there lots of times.
I'm talking about New York City, yes.
So according to the data, we're at 18% related to the homeless population in America. And you brought up Inglewood, right? So I actually live in Los Angeles. They built a Rams stadium over there, and that's why everything went up. All the prices over there, they went up. They spent what was it? I think $2 billion or $1 billion on that Rams stadium. I have to check the numbers on it. And that's why it has that city of Inglewood. It used to be, the crime rate was really high in that city and whatnot, and it just went up as soon as they built the stadium. And some people, they benefited. People that are the homeowners in the area, the value of their houses went up the roof.
Yeah, but a house is only worth what someone's willing to pay. So if crime is through the roof, who wants to live there?
In Los Angeles, they want to pay more. Los Angeles, they don't care.
No, I know. I understand. It's frustrating to me how just in the last, 5 years since COVID, everything has increased like 80%. But also all these new stadiums and sports companies are popping up, and then it just drives up inflation, and it's like, who's paying for all this stuff? The super elite, because like everybody else is like
you know what minimum wage is?
It's gonna depend per state. There's a federal wage, but it's gonna depend per state.
What's the average minimum wage?
$7.75.
Now you tell me, does that even sound so ridiculous?
Tell me that's not what it feels like, though. You go grocery shopping, you're like, I had to work 6 hours to get this. I'm going to enjoy this for my 6 hours worth of hard work.
You remember going grocery shopping in the 80s? You can get whole bags of groceries. Now you can't get nothing. You're like, I spent $100-something and I don't see nothing. Hell yeah. It's crazy.
Earlier, Wayfan was trying to unmute and talk, so I don't know if he wants to.
Yeah, I forgot. Oh yeah. We were talking about ice. You know this Dracula, which is in charge of all this ice shit show, is a Jew. This Miller, his name is Miller. He's the deputy chief of the staff of Trump. He's actually Jew.
So let's be clear, I don't have an issue with Jews. I have an issue with Zionists, just from my perspective.
No, because like everybody talks about Muslims are bad and stuff. I just wanted to point out that this Dracula is also Jew.
Well, there's not BDS laws protecting Muslims. Islamophobia is rampant, and it's growing and shrinking at the same time. I find that ironic that more people are Islamophobic today, but more Muslims are being blessed and coming to Islam.
No, because the point that they are making is that Jews are giving us everything we have from cell phone and like music and movies and they're all sorts of good things, and Muslims are all sorts of bad things.
So this Mamdani guy, for those who live in New York, do you expect him to be elected the next mayor of the city, or is he going to be destroyed before the general elections?
Let's hear from Rav. Rav, do you live in New York? So we have Rav here. Rav, did you want to speak, Rav? Now I think he's busy. Anybody from New York? Nobody?
He is being projected to win. I'm not from New York.
But you know one
I
thing.
still have my New York driver license, if it counts.
There's one thing to see here, Jindip. So he said he's gonna arrest Netanyahu, right? If he sees Netanyahu or this other character called what was it, Yoav Galant. Now, let's say hypothetically, if he was to arrive there in the state of New York, and he's a mayor. Now it'll be state police versus would Trump assign some CIA officials to for security?
I'm not really sure about the law. I don't know about the laws, but if he's the mayor and Netanyahu comes to the U.S. as a foreign visitor, that would be a responsibility of the big government, the federal government. I don't think if he has any, unless he wants to make what is called a citizen's arrest in America. I mean, if I see Netanyahu walking down the street in somewhere, I'll do a citizen's arrest, and I'll put him on trial and I'll hang him. I mean, I'll have a tribunal and I'll put him on trial, and I'm sure he's going to be found guilty of genocide, and he's going to be sentenced to whatever sentence my court would impose. So if I run into Netanyahu, I'll definitely arrest him.
That's a nice version. Let's hear the real version. Would you not take a baseball bat upside his head?
What was that guy that shot a medical professional? What was his name recently? He's facing court trial or court case. He killed a medical, I think one of the leaders, insurance leader. What was his name?
Mangione,
I think so.
Luigi Mangione.
Luigi. Now, let's say, if he arrives in the state of New York or in any state, right? And if anybody, takes the laws in their hand and they end up shooting Netanyahu, will that person be charged?
No. I mean, you have to be, civilized. You have to arrest him. You have to put him on trial. You bring,
No,
he can
you
hire.
can't.
He can hire. Hold on, a lawyer. He can hire his, whatever. What's that famous lawyer in New York, in America? That guy who's full of shit. What's his name? I forget his name. No. The guy who doesn't take his pants off when he goes to get some massage with Epstein.
Alan Dershowitz.
Dershowitz, that guy who's full of shit. Yeah. He can be. He can hire that lawyer, and we can, present our case as the entity that is responsible for prosecuting a person like Netanyahu. So you cannot use violence and a baseball bat on that stuff. I mean, don't go down there. Don't say, do we have the right to, unalive him or something? No, don't do that stuff.
No, I'm saying hypothetically, let's say if somebody was to do that, right? Would that person get charged?
Yes, but he'll be a hero.
No, yeah, but he's a war criminal, right? Wanted by the International Criminal Court, and he has committed crimes against humanity. He's pretty much sort of like what's it called? Enemy of the Palestinians, enemy of the world, right? Has started wars that he can't handle. America had to jump in, and literally there's a genocide that he's part of, that he's responsible for.
What's wrong with arresting him and putting him and having him jail?
You can't, Jim. Or not. Let's try. Jim, let's try this. Let's practice this, brother. Let's practice this. Look, if you do a citizen's arrest in America, all right, where are you gonna keep him? You cannot keep him in the police police force, because according to the law, according to the U.S. government, he's not a criminal. Okay, how will you hold him in your possession? How would you keep him in your are you going to keep him in a room, in a location, an unknown location? Then you have to meet
if I arrest him, or the U.S. government does not have any jurisdiction over my court. It's my court.
So can you even get physical when you do a citizen arrest? I don't think you can. Is that a thing?
No, or citizen arrest is it's not above the cops arrest or the federal arrest.
Yeah, but
They
you're
can- they'll
saying
come in.
holding. You're saying holding.
Yeah. You could hold them. I don't know, maybe use straps or whatever. But my whole problem, Habibi, is we're in America. I'm in America, right? If you take him as a citizen arrest, the cops will come over. They'll take him in. If you don't let him go, then they'll arrest you. How would you bring him to justice?
I guess you gotta get rid of them.
Let the police do their job, and honestly, what Jake Josh was suggesting was violent. That was violent as fuck.
So Amir, like actually when a visitor like this scumbag comes to the U.S., Secret Service is usually who's in charge of the security in the U.S. And then there is another department called State of Diplomatic Security Services. But this department actually works with local authorities in whatever state, city they're in when it comes to these diplomats' security. So I'm not too sure how would that go.
Yeah,
I wonder if anyone filed a case against Netanyahu in a U.S. court for him committing genocide, committing war crimes and that stuff. Is that allowed? Or
It's not on U.S. soil, so it'd have to be like a small claims. It'd have to be like a personal lawsuit.
The only way is to transport him out of the country to a country where he would be indicted.
I guess, wait, if you were a settler and you had property in Gaza and you had proof that your property was, destroyed, you could sue for the value of your property.
Wait,
Maybe.
like if
I don't know.
if
You're
a
paying U.S.
settler
taxes on it.
if a settler from America goes to Palestine and steals someone's home or land, and the owner of this home or land is a Palestinian who lives in America, who's an American, can that American file a lawsuit or a case or any of that stuff against someone like that in America, in an American court? I guess you have to consult with
I'm
someone.
saying it would
Kick-ass
probably have to be property, your property. Because in small claims, you can sue for just about anything. So I can sue a mechanic for messing up my car. I can sue if I trip over your sidewalk with my feet, right? Small claims is it's like the wild, wild west of courtrooms. So I think it would depend, but he's not a U.S. citizen, and the crimes he's committed are not on U.S. soil. So it's like, what angle do you go from? But I wanted to say that Trump's already threatening New York to lose federal funding, as well as threatening, Mundani. Is that how you say his name?
So what is he threatening? Threatening the city of New York, like you're not gonna get any money, and we're gonna
Exactly. Yep, and arrest him if he tries because he's held to BDS laws.
Aren't you guys concerned that America is dashing through fascism and dictatorship?
It's very problematic in the U.S. right now, and we knew this going into this election. That's the scary part for everything. That's why a lot of U.S. citizens have left the country. There's a lot of people traveling abroad right now because they're worried what's going to happen.
Yeah, but I find that Americans in general don't really travel. They don't leave they don't need to go anywhere else. I mean, some of them travel around, but not a lot of them leave the country to see what the world's about, because there's no need for them to travel. America is a huge place.
That's the psyop and the brainwashing and the programming, though, Jinder. Not everyone thinks like that. There's a huge majority, but the people that have the ability to take time off of work or get, in-country health insurance or pay money to buy a passport or buy a flight, right? It adds up. We were just joking earlier about minimum wage. So you have to consider first the demographic of people that financially can afford to do something like that, and then take that into consideration on top of who actually can physically do these things. Who wants to and who can are two different things.
Exactly, she's right. Americans are actually not very naive to this. They are politically very aware. Don't underestimate American population. I have lived in countries, and I would say American population on average, they're much more educated.
I
Because they
wouldn't
don't
say
live
that.
in la la.
I wouldn't say that.
Let me land my point. The United States, you really own your shit. It's not like, for example, other countries which they live in this la la land. Oh, one day God will come and save us all. The United States real. And you have to live in a real life. It's a wide, wide west. And in those situations, people do get educated. You cannot live in the stories. And she's right. I personally left because I was afraid this will affect my family. But I can because I have insurance in Taiwan. My wife can work here. The life is much harder, but I'm not worried if in the street somebody will come and harass me in front of my kids, which is a problem. Right now, United States, it's a problem. You can get harassed any second. But not many people can do that.
Look, I know America is a very beautiful place. The American people are very beautiful people, and they're charming and great people. I know they are. I mean, I hear a lot of negative things from a lot of people, okay, but in a negative way about America. America has a lot of ills and problems, but it's still, it has been a very unique experience in the history of the human race altogether. In terms of its, of course, it's an empire that is built on principles that are sometimes problematic in general. But America is a great place, and the American people are very are
You have to consider who the American people are. You know, there's
You are the American
90% immigrant. I'm just throwing a number out there, so don't hold me to ChatGPT. But everybody here is an immigrant unless you're Native American or unless you migrated north from, the Mexican border or south from the Canadian border or whatever, right?
But
Like,
isn't
we're
that,
all immigrants.
but isn't that the American experience? I mean, to be.
Well, it is, my ancestors were immigrants. My mother's a first generation citizen, so, but to what level and what?
Didn't Trump's father come from somewhere else?
Well, everybody did. If you go back 4 generations, at some point, everybody came over here on a boat or, traveled somehow to get here. So that's what makes it beautiful. The problem, in my opinion, is that when you have, America has Hollywood, right? And unless you were born into a very religious family, I'm going to go back to like the 50s of U.S. culture. So in the 50s, you were at the height of like segregation, right? And not only segregation, but also like political control. So the government had full control back then. No, hands down, like if it was propaganda, if it was this, if it was that, nothing was coming to the U.S. unless the U.S. allowed it. So now we've got like the internet and these kind of things. And so people can educate themselves in different ways, not just through the education system. So when it comes to how we were created, just in the 1950s, you have this Hollywood persona of like glitz and glamour and movies, and then people start to worship these, these idols, if you will. They're actually considered idols, American idols. And then you add someone like Trump, who pretty much climbed through Hollywood. He didn't get to politics through politics. He got to politics through Hollywood. And his fame, I don't know why the name of the show is slipping my mind, but he was on a TV series for a very long time that was very popular. So he gained a fandomship. People, had relation to him. They watched him on television. They built like memories with him without even knowing him. And then suddenly he's a president-elect. So now you have this huge following of this idol, this American idol called Trump, right? And then you have everybody else. Whether you voted for him and you just don't like the guy, but you liked his business, or whether you're a Trumper and a MAGA supporter and all that, and you're a beautiful, whatever the bill is called, right? and then you have everybody else, and then everybody else is kind of who's in these rooms. Unless you're like 100% Zionist, you're either uninformed, uncurious, or unaware. And that's just, in my opinion, how America works. I'm curious, and I came to these rooms curious to know about the world because I never had the money to travel, but I wanted to. I still want to. There's places on my bucket list in my, flights app right now waiting to happen. So it's like, yeah, we want to be cultured, we want to be aware, but when you're raised in a system that teaches you that America is the greatest country in the world, but they don't teach you what makes us not the greatest country in the world. You have to learn that through trial and error and 4% interest loans on student loans, right? Like, it's problematic. 6% loans on a mortgage, 22% interest on a car. Like, come on, man. America's like, it's a psyop through and through.
Good morning. I claim that America, like Trump, besides being a reality TV show, his biggest thing is that he's not part of the establishment. This started actually in Iran. Funny story. Ahmadinejad was the president of Iran, who was elected just because he was not part of establishment. And really fucked up country. Right now, Iran is paying his mistakes, both economically and you just saw an attack on Iran. And Trump is exactly the same thing. His main thing that people are liking him is not this thing. It's just simply he's not part of establishment. He's saying things which are against status quo. And people like it. People like convinced that Republicans and Democrats are both liars and thieves, which they are. And people are convinced of that. And they just want somebody else. And Trump is simply just somebody else. And this is the price that the United States will pay for, I would say, decades to come, economically, as well as militarily. When you pick somebody just because he's somebody else, here you go. Iran is paying it right now. And this will happen to the United States.
Going back to the point that I was trying to make is, Josh, you said which country would you take him to? Hey, what's up, Edward? Welcome. Edward, we were exploring this idea. If Netanyahu comes in state of New York and we have Mamdani, he wants to arrest him, how would, a state versus federal government would go about it?
Well, I would have to raise funds for a charter jet. Logistically, I don't know, Cuba maybe, they would definitely do something, but the safest bet is to take them straight to Yemen.
What? I don't understand that logic. One of your friends, Amir?
No. So we were exploring this idea. You said we'll do a citizen arrest, bring them to justice, but you're in America. If you're in America, you do a citizen arrest. I mean, the cops are going to take it away from you. Federal government will come and take Netanyahu away from you. Okay?
It'll probably be released. I don't know what the laws, how international law affects, because we have federal, we have state, we have local police, but I don't know if the ICC recognizes that.
So the way, look, Josh, I think the way it could work is that, let's say the New York mayor gets the state police to arrest him, right? And they use a state-funded airplane to fly him out of America and give it to ICC directly.
I don't think the mayor has jurisdiction over someone with diplomatic immunity.
I'm
No,
not
well, the ICC though, if it's the ICC, I think he would have jurisdiction. The problem is, then the federal government, like the FBI could come in and say, you know, because they can't. Number one, you can't fly a plane anywhere in the U.S. It's under federal law, not state law. So you know, you're not going to be able to pass the federal government, even though it's state. What are you going to do with them? You can't get them anywhere. But diplomatic immunity, I think, would be broken anyways because of the warrants for his arrest. But I mean, it's a weird situation because the ICC doesn't have like an interface per se. Like, there's no hierarchy for what happens in a country. So it's weird. Remember, this has never happened before either. So I don't know.
I don't think this situation is possible. Again, I don't think the state of New York can arrest Bibi Netanyahu. The president's power overrides anything there New York can do. So you can always send in the feds. Like, I don't know. And doesn't he have diplomatic immunity?
Well, yeah, he does. But he has diplomatic immunity, but that's if you break certain laws, then you lose your immunity. It's not like you can break laws and still keep diplomatic immunity. Now, you know, with ICC and ICC warrants, if somebody wants to arrest him, they can. But the feds coming down to the state, they can't do that. Like, they can't. The feds can't come and say, okay, you have to release him. But at the same time, the state can't fly him anywhere because that's federal. Like you know, that's the FAA gets involved. That's federal. So then they could take it over and say land the plane and, you know, and have FBI in there and take him out. But you can't order the state police in New York. So you can't do anything with him except keep him in prison in New York, really. Because if you put him on a boat, that's maritime law now. And now Israel can come in and rescue him.
Wait,
which I'm sure they would.
I'm kind of confused here. Are you guys trying to say that the ICC has jurisdiction over the United States?
Well, ICC, like, U.S. isn't a signatory to the ICC. But that doesn't mean someone can't be arrested in the U.S. for a warrant with the ICC. Like, you don't have to be a signatory as long as one party is a signatory. And I don't know who brought up the charges against Netanyahu, if it was the Palestinians or if it was someone else.
It was the South Africans, but I think what you're kind of forgetting here is that the United States, when arguing with the ICC on its jurisdiction, and I think this was back in 2002, it had passed the ASPA law, right, or the American Service Something Protection Act, where it protects the U.S. citizens from the ICC, and it prohibits its cooperations with the courts entirely, right? So in that entire kind of instance, I believe the argument had prefaced itself by saying that, I think the principle of the ICC can step in when the national courts are unable or unwilling to prosecute someone on very serious international crimes. But for that to be in place, you would have to go through the ASPA, and the ASPA is made in such a way where. No, the ASPA has two regulations. One is for citizens. The other is for U.S. cooperations when arresting the person, right? So in saying that it's a very kind of like nuanced legal document where it basically says no ICC, even though we were saying like, yeah, we'll help you, we don't want to.
That's a federal
it's really
level,
hard for like,
right?
yeah, that's the federal level.
Yeah. So he can still be arrested at the state level, and just you can't do anything with him because the feds will come in. They can't take him from the state, the feds, but you can't do anything with him except keep him in New York, which you're not allowed to do because you have to hand him into the ICC. So it's not feasible on the ground. It's just not feasible.
What if they nab him at the United Nations Court in NYC? Is there any international jurisdiction there, or no? That's all.
That's a good question. I don't know what the jurisdiction is for that property.
Hey, what's up, Rolf? Welcome, Sam.
Hi. No worries. I just popped in to tell you guys the United States, unfortunately, is not a signatory to the Rome Statute, ICC. They're a bunch of rogue criminals who threatened to arrest people if they take it to The Hague. So, unfortunately, that is not much of an avenue of discussion.
Yeah, no, that's what I was kind of saying. But they're saying that when it comes to the serious offense, there could be, and then we're talking about what if he's arrested within a UN court, which I doubt that, he would step into.
I think you mean UN property, right? Like the United Nations in New York.
Yeah, no, because I doubt he will even step in there. Let's be honest.
I don't know. I don't know what the jurisdiction is. If that's considered American territory or not.
Frankly speaking, if what you want to happen, for it to really happen, you would have to have a major political shift happen in the United States first, which, we have found out now with accurate data assessments and everything. The Democratic Party is starting to wean off of its Zionist tendencies because they've did another polling and there's an 8-point shift to pro-Palestinian sentiment and anti-Israeli sentiment. So if, let's say, this shift happens completely, the Democratic leadership changes, and then, they come in power, and then Netanyahu lands in the U.S. soils, then we can see a probability of him getting arrested. This is something I did say, like, this could be a change that does happen earlier, like 2 weeks ago or something. So that could be a reality, but again, things have to align for that to happen.
Yeah, he's not getting arrested. No, I could see, this guy becomes the mayor. I think he would try to arrest him just as a political statement, but it wouldn't go anywhere. He would just be released.
No, but we're just exploring this idea, right? How do we do this? If he arrives in America, right? If somebody first, I asked around if you were to go after him or do something to him, right? Would they arrest you, or would they still, but he's on U.S. soil, so he has some sort of protection. I think they will arrest the guy that did whatever did to him, right? Am I going to make clear?
So for that, Amir, let's play it both pro-Israeli and pro-Palestinian. If it was pro-Israeli, then the guy would get arrested. He'd probably be held to the highest charges, and the guy would be completely gone, and Netanyahu will have his immunity. What I stated to you previously 2 weeks ago, when I'm saying like, oh hey, if this is the shift that we're starting to see, the winds are going in a different direction, which it looks like for the Democrat side it now is, right? Let's assume that the Democrats have taken power. They're all anti-Israeli, pro-Palestinian, whatever, and Netanyahu lands in. It doesn't matter who does what to Netanyahu because he falls under the serious crimes thing of the APSA and or ASPA, and because of that, the country would more likely hand him over to the UN courts and everything, or the ICC for him to stand trial. But there's also a slight problem in that entire thing. There have been, if I remember correctly, for certain ICC criminals, there have been some people who have escaped because, maybe someone has immunity in different countries, or someone has allies in different countries to get them out of these sticky situations. that could also be an avenue where he still escapes and doesn't get jailed or prosecuted. But again, you would have to see tides change politically in the United States for even an attempt of an arrest to be happening on U.S. soil.
I mean, technically, he can get arrested. And the U.S. is highly political. All it takes is one police who wants to become sheriff and wants to vote in New York. You can arrest him because there's a warrant on him. If that leads to anything, probably not. Because if you arrest him, maybe a judge will come and release him. But technically, he can get arrested. All it takes is a political move. Which right now, many people in New York are, like, you can see people are using this situation to get attention. People love attention. Imagine one police arresting. How much attention you would get?
Yeah, but the problem with that is, and this is what Edward was kind of pointing out earlier, is that on a federal basis, right, Donald Trump can go ahead and say, hey, I don't want Netanyahu in jail, set in like federal forces and all that stuff, and say, hey, you don't have jurisdiction over this, which technically, Edward pointing that out is completely correct. So they would just break him out of prison, and again, the ICC, because of ASPA, what do you say, doesn't really have jurisdiction over the United States. So in that entire situation, he just goes free. He can do whatever he wants to do.
But Sam, let me ask you this. Let's say, to be honest with you, I heard it, like, listened in a little bit late, but let's say that this scenario is to happen. Somebody arrests him and then Trump releases him and all that stuff. Wouldn't that look bad on both of them in terms of internationally?
It doesn't matter. Well, they have done so many things that looks bad internationally, but they don't care.
But wouldn't that gain them more attention in terms of what's happening?
Again, and then Netanyahu has been the face of genocide international. I don't think we can get more famous off of that. Trump has been the face of authoritarianism and dictatorship within America. We can't get more famous than that. Well,
I mean, yeah.
So again,
I also don't really think he would get arrested, to be honest with you. But
yeah. So the thing is that whatever optics were thinking of him getting arrested, how it would play out, whatever politically, you would have to go ahead and see Netanyahu lose complete faith and complete power, right? For that arrest to even take place, even under a Trump presidency, because Trump, once he realizes, hey, he has nothing to do with you, or you don't have any like political power anymore, that's it, you're screwed. I mean, look at Elon Musk. They were buddy a couple months ago. Their egos clashed, and the political power of Elon is basically nothing. So, boom. Trump just throws him to the wayside and says, I'm going to look into seeing if I can deport him. So that's just how Trump operates. If Netanyahu becomes a political liability, like a heavy political liability to him, then whatever you said could happen.
I think when Daniel see any cop, he will escape. Shit, is he gonna arrest me? Is he gonna arrest me?
Wait, what? Hello?
Yeah. What are you saying?
Yeah. No, there was someone who asked a question, but it was too muffled, so I couldn't hear it.
So, by the way, the UN headquarters in NYC is under the jurisdiction of the federal courts. So he's actually safer inside there than he is outside of it.
Oh, thank you for filling us in on that. I genuinely did not know that.
I just wanted to add a point about Trump, that he is a deep, deep Zionist, and his family are deeply Zionist. And just because he may find Netanyahu a bit of a liability, he's not going to suddenly turn his back on Israel. He's done everything possibly he can for Israel, and he will continue to do so. He's repeatedly promised over and over again he wants to make Israel bigger. He wants to take on all Israel enemies. He wants to wipe out the Palestinians. He wants to obliterate Iran. his agenda is part of an organisation of Zionism. He's not just, he presents himself as this rogue outsider, but he's not. He's a highly integrated Zionist, and his cabinet is highly Zionist. His co-chair, Lutnick, is literally Shabbat, and they are deeply, deeply fascist Zionists, so that's not going to change.
So I fully agree with you, but the thing is that when in this entire thing, I was talking about specifically Netanyahu losing power. This would mean that Trump could easily turn around, say, hey, you know, Netanyahu is criminal and all stuff or whatever, and secretly find someone else to get back that isn't such a liability to them politically wise, and still, you know, prop up Israel, right? So it's kind of more of if Netanyahu completes the legal power, then you can see him get arrested under it, even a Trump like government. But if he still maintains that power, then you won't see him get arrested.
Yeah, I agree with you in the sense that if the Zionist power structure has decided they've had enough of Netanyahu, as soon as they decide that, they will turn on him, throw him to the wolves, and appoint their next, you know, face of their organisation, the next poster child for their movement, whoever that might be. Although there aren't any particularly charismatic ones waiting in the wings right now, as we said.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say like, so I've heard a bunch of Israelis talk about this point, and I think I've also heard it on Clubhouse as well. But it's a pretty famous point that they like to bring up, and that is, gratefully you don't have a Mizrahi running Israel. And the argument to that is Ashkenazis are so much nicer and sympathetic and all that stuff or whatever, that Mizrahis are known like could easily become like terrorists in your guys and all that stuff or whatever, and all that bullshit. So and to be honest, this argument does work on a lot of groups that are Zionists, because their entire shtick will be, oh, he's a nicer, kinder version of XYZ person, and then they'll say he's Ashkenazi, and you will kind of get an idea of like, yeah, he's not Mizrahi, so he won't be radical, and then we'll just be like, oh, hey, nice white man, let's go ahead and, you know, be buddy-buddy with him until we get, like, screwed over again.
Ehud Barak was Mizrahi from Iran, right?
Yeah, from what I remember, yes.
So citizens' arrest is limited, I guess. But what about if the mayor does it? Can they arrest the mayor? If the mayor orders the state police to...
No, they can't arrest the mayor. See, the problem is that, and I'm fully convinced that Trump will do something like this. They're gonna get some kind of national security panel to go ahead and look into how they can arrest Mamdani. Because you can't have a citizen's arrest, let's say, like that arrest Mamdani. You can't have, let's say, someone randomly doing something to Mamdani because that's just gonna bullshit him. So they have to get him on like some kind of like bogus charge that federally he'd be incarcerated for. Are you all so quiet?
Bro, you kind of come late to the party, to be honest with you.
I mean, yeah, I'm working.
I mean, it depends where you live, actually. What time zone are you?
CST.
I'm just trying to brainstorm here what we can do.
Brainstorm on what?
How to get... Ariel's still in the room, so I can't say anything.
How to arrest Netanyahu?
Yeah, arrests.
Oh.
That's one option.
See, the thing is, it's simple, right? And I've seen a lot of these scenarios kind of like play out military wise, in like certain situations. If, let's say, let's just go ahead and say someone really doesn't like Netanyahu, right? It doesn't matter if America is pro or anti Israel or pro or anti-Zionist, whatever it is, right? And hi, Ariel, I think you're going to get some ideas off of this. What someone could simply do is, let's say they invite him onto a private jet, something like that, whatever. They can fly into an airspace that is not friendly to Israel. And on those grounds, if they are a signatory of the ICC, then that's where the warrant can take place, will be arrested, and the United States has to find a way to bail them out. But Netanyahu is a little too smart for that. So it would have to be a complete surprise for him to be over international waters or over like a certain country's airspace that can enforce that on him, and him not knowing it.
But you know what's interesting is that the local police can technically arrest everybody with Netanyahu if they were to arrest him.
Yeah, that is true.
Including Secret Service, including whoever's with him, they can all be arrested.
Yeah. But they won't. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But they may.
See, again,
they may.
Like,
it's a political thing. They get attention and they can get elected to sheriff. It's very possible. If people tell them, if you arrest them, we vote for you for sheriff, they may. It's United States.
See, the New York Police Department, I'll be very honest, especially the NYPD, they have an office in Tel Aviv themselves, right? And it is basically suicide for their career for them to do that, especially with their strong ties to Tel Aviv. So what would end up happening is you would have the NYPD crack down on whoever, and they would find any measure to go ahead and get whoever arrested Netanyahu under any kind of position. They would hunt him down and, lock him up and throw him away on bogus charges. The NYPD has been famous for doing that shit for anyone who has done anything to any of their officers, whether they be in the right or the wrong, right? So it's kind of like there is no, proper political agenda for them to throw Netanyahu in jail by themselves.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. NYPD has a long-standing, just like brutalizing people for almost no reason.
I want to just add a bit more detail to the signatory issue, and that is that a signatory to the ICC cannot arrest a war criminal on the territory of a non-signatory nation. So it doesn't matter who's in power in the US. The ICC's own law does not extend to US territory, unfortunately.
What if a sovereign state decided that wasn't a signatory decided to fly him to somewhere where he could get arrested? Is that not a possibility?
That sounds like it might be possible, yeah. A form of extradition might be possible, yeah, if that was arranged, yeah. And the other more obvious one is if he was stupid enough to set foot in the wrong country, then they could arrest him if they're a signatory, of course. But he's going to be probably avoiding that.
I like Sam's idea. I think it just takes like one hero pilot to land a plane in the wrong country.
Yeah, that might work.
Imagine that happening. So New York is not an option. Is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, nowhere in the US, and presumably nowhere in Israel, and there are probably other countries who never signed the Rome Statute, any of those countries, it would not be an option. According to the ICC, they would not say you're authorized to do it there.
Sorry, what did I miss?
He can't be arrested in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is it a direct flight from Israel to the U.S.?
Not necessarily, no. But the thing is that the airspaces in which they take are friendly to Israel. So it would basically be like a uninterrupted route. You would have to go like a completely bogus direction to go ahead and find an anti-Israeli airspace. Like, for example, going to Turkey, which is the opposite direction. You can go to, what is it, Ireland, which they have announced their intention to arrest Netanyahu if they ever land. But Ireland is above the UK, so again, you're going out of your way to get to Ireland. Spain is starting to warm up to the idea, so you might see their airspaces become unfriendly very soon. If that does, then that affects a lot of his flight plans. And then you would have to have, like, what do you say, jet scrambled and everything, which I don't know if they're willing to do that and then get into trouble with the United States. Oh, I also forgot France. If France is actually meaning what they say they're going to do, then yeah, then the airspace is going to be completely compromised and they have to go a roundabout way to get to US.
So when you say that, like, does that mean that if his plane even just enters the airspace, they can arrest him? Or does he technically have to land?
No. Once you enter the airspace, what ends up happening is the country will know who that airplane is, like, for. So they'll ask, like, what's going on, all that stuff. If they know it's Netanyahu, if they know it's Netanyahu's plane, then you could easily, scrambled jets, warn them they will be shot down if they don't comply, which would make them comply. And once they land, they will be arrested. This is everyone.
That idiot is streaming over room. That's
Yeah, the one in Annan?
Yep.
Yeah, I know, bro. He's been here all for the last 4 or 5 hours.
I mean, it's not like we're saying anything wrong. This is just hypotheticals.
Josh, what you should do, I have an idea. I was going to ask ChatGPT on this, and maybe he'll give you solutions, and then we can talk about it. Because, it would be a suicide mission, to be honest with you, to do what, anybody would just, pretty much sort of like hypothetically, we're speaking hypothetically. What could happen, because there's a possibility some psychopath gets triggered, mad, whatever, and he has the ability to, target people, whatever. That could happen.
I'll be very honest. I would rather that doesn't happen. And I'll tell you my reason for it. I'd rather nothing happens to Netanyahu for now, and the world naturally becomes an anti-Israeli and pro-Palestinian, which we're already seeing that happen, right? So once that takes hold, if he gets arrested, anything like that, whatever, you can't go ahead and say like, oh, it's these terrorists have taken down or anything like that. No, it was just because the world hates and middle. So then, anything that happens, it's like good riddance. You were a cancer on society, you were a cancer on the world.
I agree with Sam, actually. That makes sense. We don't want to turn Netanyahu into a victim.
Yeah. So keep him in power. I'd actually just advocate for keeping him in power for now and let the Thais come against him.
I like the outcome of Trump threatening to cut off aid to Israel if they indict Netanyahu in Israel, right? That's kind of sort of a win-win. They indict him and then Trump cuts off aid.
Well, just the interplay between them, saying things like this, people know about it, and it just makes the U.S. and Israel more corrupt. So, Americans are watching this, so I think that also helps turn people away from Zionism and back, towards reality, Palestinian. I think that helps, actually. Any of this corruption that comes out, Netanyahu getting off scot-free, I think would help the Palestinian people, not hurt.
Yeah. We should take a play out of Massad's book. Do you guys know the story of Mordecai Vanunu? And I talked with Fatima about this.
Is he? I do recognize it, but please give me a refresher.
He got kidnapped and sent to prison for like 18 years or something.
Yeah, he was.
I think he's still in prison, isn't he?
He leaked documents or something related to the nuclear program that they, I believe, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, he's a nuclear scientist, leaked the nuclear weapons program in Israel. He went to England, leaked it to the Daily Press. Robert Maxwell, who owned the Daily Press, doxed him. You guys know who Robert Maxwell is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Ghislaine Maxwell's father. Yeah. And then they set up an operation, and an American-Israeli woman lured him in to a hotel room or something, and then they drugged him, kidnapped him, took him to Israel, put him in prison, and to this day he's still on house arrest. He can't leave the country.
I think, there's going to be a lot of that happening from now on, especially with anti-Israeli sentiments on the rise. You're going to have more people wanting to spy on them. Who knows? So maybe be commended as a hero later on in history for what he did.
Who?
The spy you were talking about, forgetting his name.
Vanunu, yeah. I mean, already.
Yeah, Palestinians have written songs about him, so he's a hero to Palestinians.
Israel does this shit all the time. I mean, they assassinated a guy, a Tunisian Palestinian national, in Tunisia. They hired hitmen and they did a drive-by shooting. He was working on the drone program for Hamas, I think, and they killed him. There's no jurisdiction there. There's no fair play there.
I'll be very honest. I'm just happy that the world has taken this route now, and it is unavoidable, and Israel cannot blame itself for it, because history has always told the story of who the victors were and how they got that victory, whether it be thousands of years later or 100 of years later. And Israel will go down as a mistake and a stain on not just American history, but in world history. It has to never do this again. And there will be vindication for a lot of not just the Arabs, but Middle East people on their sovereignties. So it's time's ticking.
Yeah, I mean, the momentum, is so strong now that I don't think you could stop the momentum.
No,
it's, it's just too strong. It's just too, world opinion is so, people discount world opinion, because they're not politicians, they're everyday people, but it doesn't matter if we live in a dictatorship or a democracy, world opinion matters, or the opinion of the people in that nation matter, because they could, in a dictatorship, in a kingdom, and somewhere that's oppressed, the rulers are always worried about the people rising up against them. So world opinion matters a lot, and it's more important than I think we've given it credit for in this room.
Yeah. I think, especially with the Americans, again, I was not ready to hear the numbers of what happened with the Democratic polling, especially with the dedicated Democratic voters, right? But again, you're talking about a party, especially its people who were heavily pro-Israel, not necessarily Zionists, but they were all on the thing of like, oh, you know, you should have a Jewish state, all that stuff, whatever. I mean, I was on that kind of side as well, right? And now that people like me, people who are normal, like, don't really involve themselves in politics, have now seen the bloodshed and destruction. Like, you can't take that memory away from people. They haven't seen it since 2023 now. You have what, an 80-point shift to pro-Palestinian anti-Israeli sentiment. They're negative. The party that had only the interest of pro-Israeli sentiment, while the other party was just like, yeah, we're pro-Israeli, so we can gather the Jews in one place and massacre them for the Christ or whatever.
Did you hear, Sam? Turkey just signed a very comprehensive technology defense, well, not defense in terms of they would defend them, but military cooperation in building technologies and rail and port infrastructure with Turkey. Turkey's Belt and Road Initiative with China, and they've signed. China is investing $15 billion in the next 5 years.
That's a problem for America.
Well, America did not want to go through Turkey, so Turkey was not going to be the route to Europe, the land route to Europe. So they were using, going through either Sudan, Morocco, Morocco is on the Atlantic, but that's one of their ports. Sudan for the Red Sea, and Saudi Arabia, I think. Wait, no, does that lead to Europe? No, how are they getting to Europe? They're getting to Europe by sea, not by land. But the Belt and Road wants to do both sea and land, because land is much cheaper and more predictable. So now China has Turkey, and this is a major, not just the agreement itself, but what China is giving Turkey and Turkey's giving China. I mean, Turkey's redoing their rail systems right now to be high speed. Everything will be high speed by 2030. $2.7 billion invested in Turkey's main port, tripling its size, and the land route to Europe. There's going to be military military technology being shared back and forth between both countries, and China setting up Huawei and a couple other major companies for microchips. I don't know if they're going to be fabricating there or doing final assembly or something, including all this new technology that they're investing, putting into the consumer market in Turkey. So it's a huge package. It's one of the largest.
So there's a really interesting echo here of World War I. But somebody else was going to say something.
Oh no, I was just going to say this is going to be very costly for the United States. This is a major blow for them, because militarily wise, if you give China that kind of access, right, then essentially you've cut off a lot of American interests within the European region, and you're going to open it up to more Chinese influence. That is going to have everlasting blows for the next decade or two, once it's fully complete.
Yeah.
It's that.
So this is my thesis I've been ranting on about in this room forever, which is fundamentally everything's being driven by West versus China containment. And the British have been talking about this since the mid-90s. Forget about the Middle East, that's a sideshow. The big objective is to contain China. And the US and UK have been building towards military confrontation with China ever since then, or presumably before that, and it's all going to come to a head, and it is now coming to a head as China becomes so universally, dominant in the economic sphere, and as you say, this Belt and Road Initiative is a direct threat to the Western hegemony, and the Americans are pressuring European companies not to do business with China. And it's funny that the head of the European Union just recently said, finally, it's sort of said they're going to turn away from the US towards China. Of course, got the Americans all pissed off and calling their evil and all that. And I wanted to make an interesting point that there are some historians who believe that the main trigger for World War I, despite all the narrative we've been told about some random person getting assassinated, the Archduke, whatever, it was ultimately about British imperialism, because the Germans and Turks were about to build a massive railway system across Eurasia, and in a very similar way, it was their East meets West project, and as Germany was a rising industrial power, rising so fast, the British saw this absolute threat to their power, and the British have always sought to undermine what they call old Europe. This is Germany and Russia, they're old rivals, and now increasingly it's China is the new rival, which it was before, because the British colonised and subdued China before, and they're not going to succeed this time around. The cycle is turning. It's the 100 or 80-year cycle as the Anglo-American Empire declines, and the Chinese influence is going to dominate, and the West is doing everything that's in its power to either stop or delay that happening, which is partly why, exclusively why they're arming so many Asian nations against China. We've managed to rearm Japan, we're arming South Korea, the Philippines, we send nuclear bombers to the Philippines. We are gearing up to try and take down China, which hopefully it won't come to that, but that's a massive agenda that's going on right now.
So I just wanted to clarify for the Middle Eastern Economic Corridor, which is basically, to me, the Abraham Accords masked. It's running through UAE ports, from India to the UAE, then to Saudi Arabia, then through Syria to Jordan to Israel, and then from Israel by sea to Greece to get into Europe. That's the American Silk Road.
Well, that's one route, yeah, but the other traditional route is on the other side, right? The Suez. That's why the British.
No, everybody's trying to avoid that. That's the traditional route, but this is both trade routes are purposely avoiding the Suez Canal because it's so congested. The problem with the UAE, well, and it's also prone to it's vulnerable to attack. It's also vulnerable to political instability. So both sides want to. So China, they're both, but the UAE though has been known and has been resented for many years because their port, what is it, Jebel Ali, I think it's called, which is a very sophisticated port, has been for many years, for two decades at least. That takes in a lot of the goods into the Middle East. Is very, very expensive. Some people have called it extortionary pricing. And this is so what I'm trying to say is the Chinese route ends up bringing products and products, to consumers in the Middle East, from China to Africa, to Europe, cheaper, just by not going through the UAE with their exorbitant prices.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as you probably know, the Belt and Road Initiative is multiple routes all over Eurasia and to Africa. It's a global effort, apart from the Americas, to connect, East and West. So it's a massive
and redundant.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, like I always say, where does it cross? It crosses both trade routes cross in the West Bank. In the West Bank, that's where they both cross, intersect. And the West Bank and Gaza is a geographic choke point between Africa and the Middle East. And Gaza, if it had a port, would be a much straighter path to Europe. Because you have what do you have there? Italy, Spain, southern France. So you have a much straighter path from there.
Wait, well, you said West Bank, but then you're saying Gaza.
Well, West Bank and Gaza is one people.
No, I understand, but they're completely separated by Israel, at least the way the current configuration is, right?
Yeah, but
so
they're but if there was a Palestinian territory, then there would be a either a land road and rail to Gaza, or it would be a tunnel. In the 90s and 2000s, when they were going through the various accords, it was proposed a tunnel, because why would Zionists want to see Palestinian people ever? So they were talking about a tunnel, which is fine with me. But yeah, I'm assuming. Huh?
They're going to blame Hamas for building tunnels again.
They might hire them. I mean, they've already proven, that they can do a really good job, so they might hire them. So I'm saying it as if the land is contiguous, because if there's a territory agreement, then the land would have to be contiguous. It would have to be.
See, but here's my problem with all of this, right? Because it's the United States and China, right? Especially when it comes to China. Like, I specifically don't like China's foreign policy, especially when it pertains to Israel, solely for the fact that they like playing this stupid game of, like, we hate Israel outwardly, but then they do backroom deals with them, right? So, this either will be a move to consolidate power for Israel and make an argument to make Israel whole and get rid of the Palestinian territories, or if China is smart and they want to use political shifts and tides, which they have done in the past, they could argue for Palestine. But again,
So Israel. So I know what you're saying, but two things. One, the U.S. So Israel invested money in the Haifa port years ago, and the U.S. Squeezed China out, so China doesn't have influence over that port that they invested money in. China does not want Israel in their trade line, in their BRI, because Israel is basically America, and they don't want they don't want Western influence in their. So that's not going to happen. That's actually never going to happen. That's the opposite of what they would want. So, they would want to go through the West Bank. But here's the thing. The Middle Eastern Economic Corridor also goes through the West Bank.
Okay.
It also goes through Jordan into the West Bank. That's the only way to get into Israel. So, I think there's a small little area but it's not enough to build. And they haven't built, roads or rail system or whatever. It's not feasible. Where Israel meets, what's it meet? It meets. Does it meet Syria? I think it meets Syria. But so that's not. It's like a sliver of measured in meters, like 50 meters. I don't know how. But their thing is to go through. America is going to go through the bridge, the Jordanian-Israeli, bridge into the West Bank. That's their plan. In my opinion, what I think happened was that when this was exposed to Netanyahu, he went rogue and said, no, let's see if I can't take over the entirety of the West Bank and Gaza, because he knew Gaza would be strategically very valuable and economically very valuable
because of where it sits. A gateway to Africa and the resources from Africa coming back through Gaza by rail into the Middle East, into Europe, into Asia. I think he went rogue, and I don't think the U.S. wanted this to happen because, and this is my reasoning, if the U.S. or Israel, if the U.S. whoever builds a rail system going through the West Bank, okay? Rail systems are very easy to disrupt. All you need is like a Molotov cocktail and one of the, rails, and thrown in one of them, and boom, you're done. You're down for at least a week. At least a week. I mean, we see that here in the U.S. where people put rocks in rails, the grooves, and it warps the grooves where the train glides on, and they have to go in and repair it, and they're down for days. So I don't believe that the U.S. knowing this, the U.S. understood that it would be impossible to occupy the West Bank and Gaza and expect a smooth-running, reliable rail trade route to go through the West Bank. I just cannot imagine the U.S. thinking that, and I don't.
I would strongly disagree. I think I mentioned I've got this sort of obsession with the whole thing being driven by the Chinese rivalry, right, with the West, and if anything, it is the acceleration of China's rise that is accelerating all the violence that's escalating. And if anything, the Israeli land grab and aggression, trying to destroy and redo Gaza and its West Bank, moving to Syria, trying to take down the regime change in Iran, all of this is because they know China is gaining influence in the region, and they have all these plans for the region, and the West is no longer good at building railways and doing infrastructure. Chinese are the masters of it, and the West has gone into a decadent mode of just destroying and preventing progress where they can. So they would rather destabilize, prevent inroads happening from China rather than trying to build.
But you're talking about China. I'm saying the West Bank. The U.S. would be using that route to get into Jordan.
I understand the point you're making, and I'm saying the West's habits these days are not to build infrastructure in a positive way. They are more inclined to prevent infrastructure, right? Because they want to. But
the U.S. needs it, so it's not about China. This is the U.S. going in through the West Bank. They need that infrastructure. But you're saying that.
Well, whichever way you look at it, to me that accelerates Israeli takeover of the greater Israel.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that about Israel. Right? I agree with you. But where I disagree with you is that the U.S. would not take this path because of how sensitive that American trade route, which America would depend on, from Israel, or going, from Jordan to Israel and Israel to Jordan.
Yeah.
They wouldn't take that path.
Agreement that would be, in other words, in an ideal world, Americans would have the greater Israel completely aligned with the U.S. and all these subordinate Arab states were all in line, and so they could have a Pax Americana so that they could build.
Well, I'm not taking it that far. I'm just saying, just logically speaking, if I'm in the U.S., if I was, planning out this trade route, I would say the Palestine area, the West Bank, must be, it cannot be occupied, because if it is, then we would have resistance, and all they would have to do, the resistance, to cost us billions of dollars and cost us an edge, or being able to catch up with China, is to disrupt the rail system that goes through their territory. So it would be really easy to disrupt the rail system. Very easy.
I get your point, but these people apparently want full and complete ethnic cleansing, right?
But I think that's from Israel. I don't think.
No, the U.S. is an empire. They don't care. They're aligned with Israel. If Israel is psychopathic enough to do the dirty work for the U.S., you would be happily to go along with it.
But you can't logically do that, though. That's what I'm saying. If we assume that the U.S. is logical, which